What's up, guys? Welcome to the right side, and welcome to another episode of the Right Report. The first thing that happened in the past week was the Trump tariff standoff. I don't know if you guys remember that, with Canada and Mexico. Trump threatened to tariff both Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs on just about everything, except for Canada. It was only 10% on energy. And it was supposed to happen on the 4th, on Tuesday, and a whole world was shitting bricks, especially Canada and Mexico, understandably. And this prompted actually Mexico and Canada to threaten with retaliatory tariffs. And Trump had already said that if the countries threatened with retaliatory tariffs, then he would double the tariffs from 25 to 50, which would have absolutely demolished both economies. But as Trump's very good at, the tariffs were just another part of the art of the deal, as always. The tariffs were never put on Canada and Mexico, and they actually caused concessions on the end of Canada and Mexico. As Trump said, he spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. Very friendly conversation where she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. These soldiers will be specifically designated to stop the flow of fentanyl and illegal migrants into our country. We further agreed to immediately pause the anticipated tariffs for a 1-month period, during which we will have negotiations headed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, and Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and a high-level representatives of Mexico. I look forward to participating in those negotiations with President Sheinbaum as we attempt to achieve a deal between our two countries. And just like that, the tariffs were off of Mexico for at least another month. She was the first one. Mexico was the first to concede. And then at just almost the midnight hour, our buddy Justin Trudeau, he caved as well, with Canada, with him promising to implement a $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar, and we will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl and money laundering. Also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we're backing it with $200 million. Just like that, the threat of tariffs were able to get Trump exactly what he wanted. I really wasn't scared about the tariffs. I knew that having such a strong stance on tariffs like Trump did with the 25%, because 25% is not nothing. Canada's economy is still very weak, especially since 2008, and Mexico's economy isn't that much stronger. 25% tariffs would have absolutely nuked both countries, let alone having both countries retaliate with their own tariffs and prompting Trump to up it to 50%. One of the funniest things about this whole issue and this whole predicament as it was developing was that the left was very adamant that this wasn't going to work, that tariffs are a tax on our citizens, that tariffs don't make any sense, tariffs don't work, tariffs don't this, tariffs don't that. If they didn't, right, if tariffs didn't work and they only punish citizens and yada yada yada, and in a way that Trump's tariffs was kind of economic suicide, so to speak, then why would Canada and Mexico immediately offer retaliatory tariffs? Isn't it just a tax on their own citizens? Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just have let the United States, let Trump kill his own economy? Why did they also want to kill theirs? It's obviously because tariffs are a way to cripple certain industries that try to outsource jobs and bring it back into the country, trying to sidestep labor. That's why tariffs work. Tariffs make the companies pay the government a tax, which then they try to pass off to the consumer. But since they try to pass off to the consumer, it raises prices, and therefore it makes them less competitive in that domestic economy. It's very simple economics. It works like a charm, because if it didn't work, and Trump was a paper tiger that was just going to end the United States, that there was no reason why Canada and Mexico wouldn't have greatly benefited from this, then they wouldn't have conceded so easily. They wouldn't have given Trump basically everything that he wanted without any trouble. All Trump had to do was threaten the tariffs, threaten to cripple their economies in the largest economy in the world, right? And that was it. That's all it took. And thinking otherwise, thinking or treating tariffs as anything else is wildly, it's not in accordance with any of the reality that we are seeing. It makes no sense that if tariffs were what the left tries to position them as, Canada and Mexico wouldn't have returned their own retaliatory tariffs, right? They would have just let America suffer, right? But they didn't. What they did was they were acted in the interest because they knew that would make their goods a lot less attractive in the American economy. And therefore they say, you know what, President Trump, we'll do whatever you want to do. We will cooperate with you. Just don't tariff us. So they came to the table, and that was that. It's that easy. It really is that easy. I wasn't really worried about the tariffs. I knew that they were strong enough to really push or bring everyone to the table, and I'm glad that it happened. Something that happened relatively recently, at least it blew up earlier in the week and it's kind of sustained, is this whole USAID thing. United States Agency for International Development, which is a nice way of saying it's basically foreign aid. This thing has been absolutely skinned alive in terms of the bones and the skeletons of this, and it's been absolutely fascinating to watch. I really hope that a documentary comes out on this because it is freaking fascinating as hell to watch all of this happen. Essentially, USAID is a money laundering scam. I'm on the White House website right now. Only a few examples of the waste and abuse. $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $2.5 million for electric vehicles in Vietnam. $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. $2 million for sex changes and, quote, LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Millions to EcoHealth Alliance, which was involved in research at the Wuhan lab. Hundreds of thousands of meals that went to Al-Qaeda affiliated fighters in Syria. Funding to print, quote, personalized contraceptive birth control devices in developing countries. And hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation canals, farming equipment, and even fertilizer used to support the unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan, benefiting the Taliban. This is absolutely insane. Data Republican on X has a lot of really good posts about all of the inner webbings of this kind of a thing, how this money, huge shout out to Oscar Binovich on X as well. The extent of the corruption in this agency is absolutely unreal. It seems like what happened is the government paid all of these organizations, and the law is that you have to report payments to certain people through certain kind of avenues. So through the first payment to the one company is one, and then as they funnel the money to another shell, and another shell, another shell, there's only a certain number of shells you have to get to before all the payments are able to be private and not public. And so the amount of interwebs that these payments went through to fund all these BS things is truly staggering. And I thought that in terms of the left funding, things like that, I kind of had the idea that it was all billionaires and teachers unions doing all of the shady shit that was going on. Turns out that USAID might be one of the largest culprits imaginable, as all of these were pretty much just favors to all their donors that or family members that had these shell companies and shell operations in other countries that they would funnel money to under the guise of foreign aid, which is really unfortunate because I'm a nationalist, right? I'm not an isolationist. I don't mind foreign aid as long as we can afford it, you know? I mean, we're over, what, 35 some odd $trillion in debt right now. Can't really afford a lot of things when you're in debt. But the idea of foreign aid is noble. It is. It really is. I don't want to take away from that. However, it is the compassionate things in which you might take a social or a public deficit for someone else to get a public gain that really is rife with potential for abuse and perversion. That's exactly what foreign aid tends to be. All of these things under the guise of foreign aid, because people know that foreign aid sounds really good on the commercials. It sounds really good on billboards. It sounds really good on TV. We gave foreign aid to Africa and this country and that country for this cause and that cause. And it makes us feel really good. It makes us feel really good to fund different things in different countries, medicines, vaccines, development, things like that. But it also allows for all of these minor things like $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces and business communities. These are all money laundering. That DEI in Serbia, I guarantee you, is for a company that is owned 4 degrees from a donor or a family member of someone in government, that once the money snakes through, they can just pocket that 1.5 million and really provide nothing. Because how much you want to bet that none of these things are really kind of chased down? There's no chasers after this money. There's no one checking to see if a transgender opera in Colombia is really built. I want to see the transgender comic book in Peru. How good is a DEI musical? These things aren't real. These things don't exist. This is all money laundering. And it's taking advantage of the plight of those who are less fortunate, of those who are in poverty globally, in developing countries. It's taking advantage of them. And USAID seems to be the number one way that politicians give back to their donors. And if you get rid of one side of the negotiation, then you really start to attack the funding spigot, so to speak, in terms of where they get all this funding and where they get all this money from the donors and like Soros and Gates and Hoffman and whatnot. USAID, the headcount in the department, seems like the headcount in USAID has been dramatically cut. I think it was once at 10,000 employees. Now I think that there's less than 300. I think it's 294. Talk about a streamlining. This is just another example of the sheer power and effectiveness of Doge. Small team of young guys that are absolutely taking a paper shredder to all, or not a paper shredder, so to speak, but magnifying glass to every single page in the federal budget, taking a magnifying glass to every page of the federal budget, seeing where the corruption and the fraud is. If we didn't have Doge, we wouldn't know this, right? If we didn't have all these investigations going into this kind of stuff, we wouldn't know about all of this corruption. So there's a huge debt of gratitude towards Doge for getting all this out there. And it's really funny to see the left absolutely freak out about this. It really is. Because everyone in theory, you'd think, would be against corruption. It's a pretty easy thing to be bipartisan about. But the Dems and the Libs are just furious about this. And it's very puzzling. It's very puzzling. And they'll, of course, appeal to emotion with what I said earlier about the foreign aid. About how, you're taking away this, you're taking away that, people are going to starve, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And, these people are trying to enrich themselves off of the plight of others. And all these government contractors, all these government workers, I don't care. I don't care about I don't care about the plight I don't care about their plights at this point. These people who are in these federal agencies, the administrative state, are destroying the country from within. They are poisoning the well of public discourse. They are strangling small businesses. They are picking the pocket of Americans to give to their buddies and their friends through forward aid and other compassionate policies. My compassion and my empathy has run out. It's run out. These people will do anything to benefit them. And when the slightest bit of retaliation and justice is put upon them, they just pour their hearts out and they appeal to, oh, your humanity and oh, your feelings. Like, I don't care anymore. It's so important to remember how we got here. Don't forget that. Don't let yourself be distracted by that. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Because when you give them the benefit of the doubt, they will not hesitate to not give you the same. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. And the next thing that happened very recently was Donald Trump's transgender sports executive order. There's a huge picture that came from the signing of the executive order that I hope is put on every single ad during the midterms next year. This issue and this executive order should be, if they haven't already, it should be the things that kills the Democrat Party. I mean, having that picture of Donald Trump surrounded by all the young women of all ages behind them as he signs the executive order banning biological men who are either mentally ill or sickeningly perverse, perhaps even both, from playing against women in sports. This is a radical thing, apparently, to the left at least. This is a policy that echoes the fascism to the left. What are you talking about? When you as a political party lose on this issue, and this issue is the thing that posits you as the opposition, where the Democrat Party is the one that opposes this executive order, you've lost. You've lost in the culture. You've lost. You've lost in the culture. You've lost in the public's eye. I mean, the optics of this are absolutely killer for the Dems. Do they respond? Or how do they respond? I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. This is such a easy issue that they fought so hard on. And for someone like Trump, it's almost 80. Like, he lived in a world where this wasn't an issue. This wasn't even thought about. When I went to university, this was a huge issue of how you treat biological men who think that they're women and want to play in women's sports. This was a legitimate thing we talked about in university. This was a legitimate debate. I couldn't, for the life of me, understand why the subjective feelings of a certain group override what we know to be objectively retarded. Why are we letting that override our logic? It's unbelievable. It's sickening. And that executive order, which never, ever should have been signed, had to have been signed, that is. Like, this should not have been an issue at all, ever, right? It's going to kill Democrat Party. It is what it's going to do. I hope, like I said, I hope it gets played in the midterms religiously next year. I hope it is. Because you positing this against the Democrats is killer. And this is exactly why. The Democrats will die in short order because of wokeness. Because next year, you go to the midterms, right? And every single Republican incumbent, every single Republican running, really, shows that photo in their ads against their Democrat opponents. And they force them to take a position. And if they don't take that position, they're going to be exiled by the left. And that inner division, where the woke voters are politically suicidal in terms of, we will not vote for you. That's how Hillary lost in 2016. One of many reasons why Hillary lost in 2016. And why a lot of Muslim voters in Michigan and Wisconsin didn't vote at all. And if they did, they voted for Trump. The Genocide Joe crowd. These people are suicidal with their vote. And that will cause the Democrats to split. It will cause a fission. It will cause them to divide. It will cause a fissure in the Democrat Party. And It's been long coming, We've been waiting for this day to come for a while, where the left, the woke, got too overzealous in their march, and this is where they probably overset their bounds. So the transgender the sports EO should have never happened. Really should have never happened. But here we are, and Trump is the one who signs it. Of all people, Donald Trump has to sign it, and I hope that it is the death knell for the Democrat Party that we all hope it is, or at least that I hope it is. So, the last thing I want to get into is this really interesting development regarding the Gaza Strip. Now, when this first came out, I think it was on Tuesday, right? When Trump said it in the press conference, it kind of seems like he took Netanyahu by surprise. The whole thing is very, very weird, and the MAGA has really taken a lot of angles on this. We all know that MAGA isn't the cult that the left says it is, and this Gaza issue is proof of that. At first, because of what happened with Trump's executive orders, Trump's tariffs with Canada and Mexico, I thought that this was kind of a ploy, where Trump, because none of the Arab countries want the U.S. in the Middle East, kind of fiddling with the settings, so to speak, or at least like in there physically. And so I originally thought that when Trump proposed the whole Gaza thing, I thought that he was trying to stir the pot in Arab countries to kind of see who wanted to step up and, take control, take responsibility over the Gaza Strip. Similar to how he threatened Canada and Mexico with 25% tariffs, not meant to actually do the tariffs, although he would have, more so to drive the countries to the table, negotiating table, and get something, fixed. I thought this was that. I thought that he was just trying to say like, oh, we're going to take over Gaza, we're going to do this, and that, and then, kind of give a coy, whatever, to the Arab countries saying, hey, if you guys don't want this to happen, you guys can, come to me with your own thing. But apparently Trump is actually serious about this. If you ask me, initially I was on board with it, to be completely honest, because I actually thought it was like, oh, maybe we can, have like a trading outpost and things like that, and maybe that would be nice. But driving the Palestinians out of their homes is a really bad move optically. You really don't want to do that. And, first and foremost, how America first is this? How America first is it to start a colony in the Middle East? I don't like that. I don't think that's America first. Even if we had a trading post in Gaza, I don't like where it is. I don't like having an outpost, a U.S. territory, a protectorate, whatever you want to talk about, there. I just don't think it's safe. What I hope it doesn't become is a position where we step in, we rebuild, we kind of clean it up, flip it, so to speak, and hand off to Israel. I really don't want that to happen. Because I think that, say what you want, but Israel has certainly had a large amount of influence on American foreign policy for a long time. And for people who say that, who question people who say that, if we did that, if Trump turned Gaza into a nice place, right, where they're bustling with activity and, it's a nice development, things like that, and he just hands it off to Israel, that's really bad. That'd be really, really bad for our relations with the other Arab countries. I think handing it over to Israel would be really souring of our relations with other Arab countries. So I really don't want that to happen. I think that I cross my fingers and I hope that Trump's actually not being serious about this. I hope that he's just trying to spur or invigorate someone else in the Arab countries to kind of step up and take the mantle, so to speak. But Trump apparently really kind of called his own number on this one. A lot of his cabinet members were kind of surprised. A lot of people in his inner circle were surprised, and it looked like Netanyahu in a press conference was kind of surprised when he said it. But we will only know when the time comes, so to speak. But I don't want to get that involved in the Middle East. I don't want an outpost in the Middle East. I don't want American soldiers in the Middle East. While the idea of a trade colony on paper is kind of attractive, I don't like the location of where it is. I don't like the tensions of the area. And I think that anyone that we put there to man the outpost would be in danger. And I don't like that. We shouldn't be a flipper. We should not act as a realtor for Israel in the Middle East, where we just take land, fix it, and hand it to them. That would be really, really bad. And it sets up a really bad set of incentives for Israel, for all the other Arab countries. It really creates a bad precedent. So say what you want about the rest of the conflict. I am really apathetic towards the whole thing, honestly. I don't really care that much. But what I do care about is the optics of things. Because fixing Gaza, handing off to Israel really wouldn't look good. Having an outpost there and really spending extensive time in Gaza is not America first. It's really not. Because it only puts American lives in danger, and it puts them in the middle of a very tense situation. So for those reasons, I don't like the Gaza proposal. So Gaza, I hope that Trump's bluffing like he was with Canada and Mexico. I hope he doesn't really end up doing anything in the Gaza Strip, because that would not be America first, and it would only put American lives in danger. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. If you'd like to support and help the channel grow, become a member, subscribe, or ring the bell to stay updated with all my uploads. Finally, whether you agree or disagree, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I look forward to engaging with you guys in respectful and thoughtful discussions. With that said, see you guys next video. See ya.